is that, I mean, like you rightly said, Second World War, afterwards, there were people that were writing about, correlating what it means to say human rights.
Yeah.
And one of the lead writers is Thomas Hobbes, has written about what human rights is about. He made us understand that we're all in state of nature.
Yeah.
Everybody was on his own. We are supposed to do everything on our own. And nobody has to cater anybody's right of doing something.
Yeah.
The only right that you had is that we are surviving as animals per se. That's where we had the survival of the fittest.
Yeah.
So if you have food, I can beat you and take the food from you. I eat, you die. And it goes on like that.
Yeah.
Then you realize that individuals started to say that this kind of living is not what we want.
Yeah.
So then it brought about what we call the social contract theory, whereby individuals come together to form a group. Out of our group, we elect a few people to say that, okay, we are giving you our liberty, our rights, and our power, which ordinarily, which we say is inalienable, is inherent in us. Immediately you are born, you have those rights and power. So I'll give you my power as an individual, just among the 3 or 4 or 5 people that have been selected amongst us.
Yeah.
Then in turn, you tend to protect us so that you don't have individuals coming to fight us to take what would enable us to live.
Yeah.
So then the social contract theory will tell you that based on that, we'll give our power, which we have, to the elected, and in our current system, we'll say to the government. Governments have the responsibility to protect our rights and to provide certain basic amenities to us. So with this understanding, you realize that the crust of it is that we all have those rights.
Yeah.
So it's not for me to do something. That social contract that we've signed has as a duty that I've already performed, and based on that, I need my rights to be respected and protected by the state and individuals thereof within the particular system. So in effect, if you understand that way, we understand what the human right means.
Yeah.
And like she said, there are various rights, I mean, in the constitution, and not even restricting it to the Ghanaian sense in terms of the international sense. You rightly mentioned
not to cut in, but you made mention of something about, you know, the contracts that we have with the government. So in that case, let me ask this question before we even get into the international bits of it. That does the state owe me an obligation, and in the sense that where I have to enjoy my human rights, does the state owe me any obligation? Is the state obligated to do anything for me to ensure that I am free to enjoy the basic or fundamental human rights that are given to me?
Yeah, precisely. The state has a very huge role to play.
Okay.
And there are 2 types of rights in there. We have back to the international sphere, whereby they declare the UNDR, which is the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And we also have the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, which, if you come to our constitution, you can see that both of them have been captured in Chapter 6, Chapter 5, and Chapter 6 itself. So we have the basic inalienable right that helps you to live. So for instance, under Chapter 5, right to life, you don't expect the government to do anything for you to live. I live. You understand?
Yeah.
I can move.
Yeah.
I don't need the government to restrain me.
Yeah.
But if you are looking at the Chapter 6 kind of economic life, social, then that's where we know I need my roads to be fixed. I need schools. I need potable water. All these fall under
good
the 2 ambits.
Exactly.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, so the government has that obligation to the citizens of the country, and we don't need to do anything to enjoy these rights. Just by mere fact that I've been born in a certain country, I'm supposed to enjoy these rights. So yesterday, when I was preparing for this discussion, one thing that I came to acknowledge and respect and appreciate about our 1992 constitution is the fact that we have our human rights, our fundamental human rights and freedoms entrenched. It's an entrenched provision. But for the sake of our viewers, I want the law students to explain what an entrenched provision means. When we say something is an entrenched provision, what does it mean? Speaker of Parliament, no, we are not running to the president. We are coming straight to you. What does it mean? That because when you finish explaining that, then I will come to talk about why I appreciate and why it's so important that we have it like that in our constitution. Yeah.
Entrenched provisions we have different types of provisions, but then when we say something is entrenched, there's a little bit of emphasis on it. Yeah, so it's not like other provisions where other people can just look at it and pass by. This is something that the governments have put in, and they've added an emphasis on it. So there's going to be sanction if it's not going to be followed. And that's where we can see the chapter 5 that's talking about the human rights. This shows the importance of human rights in our country. So for anyone that goes against any of the provisions, there are sanctions that you have to pay for. You get it? So that's the simplest way I can explain.
So just to add up to, you know, they are basically under chapter 26, there's a way to amend the constitutional, every constitutional provision. So another classification too, in addition to what she said, might be how to amend those provisions. So one of them is that Parliament can just sit in the chamber, read, we are not okay with maybe Article 2, and based on that, they make their debate, speaker calls a vote, it happens, then you say, okay, by, majority decision in Parliament, this provision has been amended. That's that. Then when we come to the entrenched provision, the framers of the Constitution are very much aware of the importance, like she rightly said, of those particular provisions. To say that even though Parliament, you have the power to amend, you cannot do it alone. So what you have to do is that immediately you want to amend such a provision, then you have to bring it back to the Ghanaians. We are supposed to vote on those provisions before you make any amendment to those provisions. It tells you the importance and how, it's not easy for you to go through such a procedure. So that you go to the first reading, second reading, then you bring it back to people to vote on a memorandum, whether we are a referendum, whether we agree or not agree, and even there's a 75%. So it's giving you a criteria that is not just easy, just vote and majority decision. No, there's still some limitations in there. Just to tell you the emphasis to which the framers of the Constitution place on those particular provisions.
Okay, so now that they've broken it down in layman's view, I want, it means that if you want to change anything in chapter 5, which is article 12 to, is it 33? You would have to go through a cumbersome process, and so it will discourage you from, wanting to make any changes to the chapter 5. And I've come to appreciate it so much because prior to us having these rights or these fundamental human rights and freedoms being entrenched in our 1992 constitution or in the constitutions that came before them, people could just sit in Parliament. Presidents could just sit in Parliament. If today they come out and then you disagree with them, they could just go into Parliament and then make new laws that would affect you. But now, because they are entrenched, they protect you, they guard you, and so when Article 13 says no one shall be deprived of his life intentionally except in the exercise of the execution of a sentence of a court in respect of a criminal offense under the laws of Ghana of which he has been convicted. It means that nobody can take your life unless, and so that brings me to my next line of questioning. I have the right to life, I have the right to own property, I have the right to association, I have the right to vote, I have the right to education, and all these rights that I'm supposed to enjoy. But are these rights absolute?
Well, all rights are not absolute. So if you read Article 12.2, it tells you about the limitations in there, and there are two limitations. One of the limitations is to allow others to also enjoy their rights, so that in the enjoyment of my rights, I don't infringe on yours. So you have to. Then we also look at what we call the public policy. In the enjoyment of your right, it shouldn't be something that will be detrimental to the state as a whole. So these are the two limitations in there. And that's why you rightly read Article 13 to tell you that if you commit a crime is a wrong against the state. So it's something that, so you cannot say that I'm enjoying my right, I want to do everything, I want to kill somebody, and based on that we should allow you to do that. No, 12.2 will tell you that that right has been curtailed. So our right, even though we are allowed to enjoy it, it's not, there's some fetters in there for you to enjoy those rights. Exactly.
I see. So they say where your right ends, another person
starts.
Begins, right?
Exactly.
Right. Exactly. But if that's the case, then what freedom of speech? I have the freedom to speak. So if I say something, who is to determine that this thing is infringing upon somebody?
Okay, so as he said, when you are using or you are trying to make use of your freedom of speech, you should make sure it's not hurting someone else. Yes, we do have the freedom to speak and say whatever we want. But are you hurting another person, and are you undermining someone's human rights in the process? Imagine your words are hurting the person and the person ends up committing her life. That's infringement. She has the right to life.
The person is not strong. It's not me.
Because words do hurt.
Yeah.
So as much as you have the freedom to speak, just make sure you are using it in a, let me use the word sensible, in a sensible way, and not infringing.
Use the law term. Use the law term. Use the law term, counsel. Use the law term. Reasonableness.
Yeah.
Maybe they don't understand all.
They don't understand.
Yeah. So. Okay, so far you can go.
Sure. So I just wanted to, so for instance, we have to understand what constitutes rights that we have to enjoy.
Okay.
And the reason why the framers have put those rights in there.
Yeah.
In as much as you don't infringe on any other person's rights.
Yeah.
And also that it doesn't affect the public policy, you should be allowed to enjoy those rights. In as much as you might be happy or not happy with the person enjoying those rights.
Yeah.
So like you rightly said about right to speech.
Yeah.
I can look at somebody and say, maybe you are not beautiful or you are not handsome.
Yeah.
It's my opinion.
Yeah.
I've said nothing. I should be allowed to speak those words. I should be able to look at my government and criticize my government that they are not being competent in delivering whatever they promised me. It's my freedom.
Yeah.
I have to speak against it. The reason why we protected speech is not because for me to praise government. If we were to be that, we won't have those provisions.
Yeah.
The framers understood that there are some adverse comments that I should be able to make about people, about our state, and that's why I'm being protected. Notwithstanding that, the two caveats still stands that I don't infringe on anybody's right. So remember that in time past we have the criminal libel law, and in present times it doesn't operate again because we wanted people to freely speak and express their opinions. And even if you feel offended by anything, you have a civil right, as in right of suing for a defamation, but nothing criminal about those rights. So we have to make a clear distinction about those kind of limitations so that we don't conflate it to say that because there's limitations in there, I can't say what I want to say or will not be allowed to say the unpalatable words. I should be able to say, and that is why those rights are being provided in the Constitution.
Just adding a little bit on top of that. So if it's a fact, if it's a statement of fact, it might hurt the person's feelings, it might offend the person, but once it's a statement of fact, it's a statement of fact. It's my defense. So I'm doing
Exactly. So, not even statement of fact. I should be allowed to also share my opinion.
Yes. I may not agree necessarily with your opinion, but it is your opinion.
It's my opinion.
But if your opinion is provoking somebody to commit a crime, for example, if you are telling me that I'm not beautiful and it offends me, and so yes, and I beat you, or because I'm strong and I beat you, you've provoked me to commit a crime, and so shouldn't you be limited in a way to say that to me, because your rights are supposed to be protected, mine is also supposed to be protected?
Well, in this particular scenario you painted, there's absolutely no defense for you. If I speak against you, I mean, Act 29 provides what it means to provoke someone, and doesn't fit in this criteria. So my point is that we should get a rationale, the history why those rights have been put in there is that people ordinarily will not say palatable words about you. And there's still a remedy. The civil remedy is there. That, okay, I said something, you think I've tarnished your image. I mean, the right forum is there. Go deal with it. And if the court pronounce me as sin, you get some, relief from it. So it's not for you to take the law into your hands and, go ahead and beat someone up. Then you'll be liable for assault. Exactly.
Asafa, you agree with me that if I take somebody on to court to claim defamation and I'm not able to show that this has caused me an economic loss, there wouldn't be any compensation. There wouldn't be anything that I would get, and it's not criminal. This person will not be penalized. So I would go to court and pay a lawyer and then still come back home sad and still with the insults and all of that.
Well, then you have to understand the position of law. And someone speaks against you, you just pack your bag.
You also just speak against the person.
You also speak, or you just pack your bag, go and sleep. We cannot build the kind of animal kingdom again in this. So in essence.
Okay, so talking about you know, enjoying my rights and somebody also enjoying their rights. So if somebody infringes upon my rights, if the state that owes me an obligation to ensure that I enjoy these rights that are inalienable, you know, infringe on them, abuse my rights, don't do their part in our contract or in our agreements, what can I do? What can one do as a Ghanaian citizen? Let's put it in our jurisdiction. As a Ghanaian citizen, what can I do?
Okay, so honestly, that is all stipulated in the Constitution.
Yeah.
Yeah, and in the same chapter 5. And then as much as they were stipulating that, okay, this is what you're supposed to do, this is what you're supposed to do. I think for the layman, the best you can do is you have your civil responsibility. So it's
I don't think my people understand civil responsibility. Break it down. Hey, law students, hey, break it down. What do you mean? What do you mean?
Break it down.
Break it down. What did your teacher say civil responsibilities were?
I don't know how to break.
So in essence, so someone has done something wrong against you, and you alone. So the right forum is for you to go to court, like I said earlier. Think that, okay, someone has done someone has defamed me. Someone said I'm a thief. I've not stolen anything before, and now people around me are looking at me in a way that ordinarily they didn't look at me, or would want to refrain from dealing with me in a manner which earlier it wasn't so. Then you have the right course of action against such a person. Then you go to court and go and make such a claim. If the court in its own wisdom comes to the conclusion as such, so what the court can do is to either refrain such a person from making such comments against you in the future, or make some monetary compensation to you as well. So all these are remedies that the court can give to an aggrieved person.
But then to add to that, we know it's not everyone that can afford courts.
Exactly.
And it's not everyone that would.
Because if I look at you, a law student,
and you have something against me, and then you are just a market woman and you feel like your rights have been infringed on, the person might not know the right process to go through. So I think there are measures where the layman can actually try and seek for redress or raise action against someone. And I think that's where Shraj comes in. As much as you cannot go to court or anything, there are also an entity that is known for human rights violations. So I think most people can actually go with that instead of the whole court procedure if they are not familiar with it. And
because imagine an APS and Esquire, then you are going to say, you know, look at the glasses alone. If you go to her office and she's not there, secretary will say that consultation fee.
So they are doing this.
Just 300 Oh, then
but
you
they should
good.
pay. They should pay. They should pay consultation fee.
Our books are expensive. I mean, their books. Hey, I'm committing myself. Anyway, so now looking at all these rights, you know, I have the right to whatever sexual thing that I want to do with myself in my room or in the closet of wherever I am. But now there's a new bill, or should I say a memorandum, or you know, on the Proper Human Sexual Rights and Ghanaian Family Values Bill 2021. What do you think about this bill? Is it going to infringe on the rights of the people? Before we even come to the customary bits of it, because I know that this whole thing has international eyes. And in as much as we have human rights that we enjoy in our country, human rights are universal. They are everywhere. It's not restricted to just Ghana alone. And so if you have a right to live in Ghana, you have a right to live in Libya, you have a right to live in Europe, you have a right to live in every part of the world. So much so that if your rights are infringed upon here in Ghana, you have the right, due to international laws, to go outside the country to seek asylum or refuge in other countries. So in our own country, with a president like the Nadu Dankwe, human rights lawyer, with this bill, what do you think? What do you think?
Well, my opinion is one and same. In that, yes, bills will be passed where people feel that there are certain provisions which is not in tandem with a constitutional provision and specifically protection of fundamental human rights. I mean, there's a remedy under Article 21 and Article 130 for you to go to the Supreme Court to ensure that those provisions are annulled from the Act. So, yes, in as much as, and it's a good discourse, people are raising issues about certain provisions.
Yeah.
And the proponents will tell you that they've gone back and forth trying to, I mean, dot the T's, dot the I's and cross the T's in there and the like. So, for me, it's a good discussion. And for us as law students, it's something we are looking at. People are filing cases, it's going to expand our jurisprudence. So for me, really it's not about, I'm just interested in the process to see how it goes, and also in terms of what the courts will come up with certain decisions, so that we'll learn from some of these things. So it's good. It can even become laws have been passed which has been struck out by the court. So I mean, those who think that rights are being infringed upon per this particular bill, their rights are not lost. They still have a remedy in the Constitution. So for me, that's my general overview over it. Yeah.
Daneke, what's your general overview?
Yeah, I think I also agree with him. As law students, our main aim is to learn. So we are actually overlooking the whole biblical reference of Sodom and Gomorrah. They are saying it's not good and all that. They are looking at human rights as a whole. Yes. Is this person's rights being infringed upon? What actions are going to be put in place for the person? Is the person enjoying the human rights? We are not really looking at the actions involved. We are looking at the whole process. If it's actually going to, like Safa said, if it's going to go through the right processes, if people are going to enjoy it, if people are going to be protected. So I think as law students, we are actually having that same perception. Yeah.
I see. But, I mean, as a developing country, do you really think that this is a priority's priority? You know, where our country is situated and where we are, is this a priority?
Well, I think it's something that the state has to, I mean, determine, and its people. Sovereignty of every state, you, in as much as you might interact with other states. So if you think at this position you are not so self-sufficient to, I mean, pass certain laws which will inhibit you from getting certain aids and help from people, then obviously it wouldn't make economic sense for you to sign. You understand? However, we are also a sovereign state. We have to determine what we think is good for us. So in as much as you go to a country, maybe other country, I mean, polygamy, you can't marry more than one. They think it's a huge crime and nobody dares do that. You come to this part of the world and you feel like, okay, under customary law, you can marry as many as you can. So, I mean, state difference. And for me, we have to think as a state, would it be good for us? After weighing our economic benefits, should we override our rights as a sovereign state? We'll come to that conclusion and think we should pass it. I mean, everybody have to go by it, or we shouldn't pass it then. I mean, that's it. That's it, yeah.
Well, I personally, I don't think somebody's sexual life or what people do in the comfort of their homes and in their bedrooms should be my business. It only becomes my business when it's being taught in schools, when it's being fused in our movies, in our materials, because we have children who go to school who are innocent, you know. They can't even decide their favorite colors, and you're already teaching them about sexuality. That is when it becomes a problem for me, because you are shaping, those are the things that shape and mold us. Because when we were young, we were watching Grachi and all those things, you know, those, yes, you know, Wizards of Waverly Places or whatever. Those are the things that we grew up talking about and then, you know, sharing with our colleagues, and then all the Mary Cruise and well, we've watched things, you know. So that is when it becomes a problem for me. But aside that, but let's not even veer off our conversation, because it's our Supreme Court. Let's just wait as the wheels of justice, you know, grind slowly, and then let's see where it gets us to. Let's get into customary law. When we talk about, I just remembered. Let's even just get into when we talk about human rights, and then comparing it or linking it with international human rights or international declarations and all the treaties that we've you know, signed or yes, exactly. When we talk about that, I think we leave out natural laws. The natural laws. So far, you agree with me, right?
Yeah.
So we talk about natural laws. There are some of the laws that we've not even necessarily put in our constitution, but we've adapted just because they are natural laws, right?
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah. You're right. And that's why if you read Article 33(5), it tells you that there are certain rights that even the Constitution itself has not captured, which is still will be deemed as rights that people should have. You understand? Because it seems that, and it all goes to the point to realize that we are in a kind of what Justice Sowa would say, a living organism globe. That the state as we were maybe 60 years, the demands, the needs might not be compared to 2024. We have different needs, we have different aspirations. So definitely there are certain things that those who framed the Constitution in 1992 will not have thought about. But maybe in 2024, maybe 2030 might become a right. And that's why in their wisdom, 33(5) will tell you that even though those that has not been specified, so far as it is accepted within the international community, it should be drafted automatically as part of our rights. And that's the only thing that when you talk about international laws, it drafts directly, because Article 75 will tell you that before you draft any international law into a municipal or local law, it has to go through Parliament for ratification. But the only exception is human rights. That one under 33(5) automatically becomes part of our laws.
Even though we've not ratified.
We've not ratified, automatically becomes part of our laws,
I see. Because yesterday I found something that this natural law term, or the Otrampa term here, the other side, is not necessarily in our Constitution. A lawyer was telling me yesterday, and I couldn't believe it. I thought, in school, how did I not read it? I was like, but this one is here, 19. That's about 19.
We'll talk about fair trial, but not necessarily about
I was shocked. I was like, hey, squid, So we learn every day. So one of that, the natural laws, here the other side, you shouldn't be a judge in your own case, and then all of that. There are human rights that we enjoy that are not necessarily even in our Constitution, but just mere fact that we are human beings and they are generally accepted in our international laws. We benefit from it. Jesse is laughing at me on Facebook. He says, is that an injunction document on the table before Mamicha? Jesse. Anyways, let's get into customary laws. When we look at customary laws, what do we mean? What are customary laws? Anekia, I'm directing it to you.
Customary laws actually differ from community to community or culture to culture. And then, like, apart from Article 11 that stipulates that it's a source of law, they actually go line in line with statutory provisions. That's like the Land Act and the Matrimonial Act and all that. But then the divergence between the international laws and the customary law is when one supersedes the other. So there are some cases where it's like discrimination, but then you are trying to enjoy your customary rights, you are trying to enjoy your human rights. So there's this, they are trying to balance the two, but then one will always supersede the other because human rights has international precedents and all that. But then for customary law, apart from the tribunals that sit on the cases and then the chiefs and communities, it's something that most people enjoy, and then it's also like stipulated in the Constitution. So I feel like customary law is a part of us. That's how I can actually. So our land tenure systems like this, marriage, arranged marriages and all that, they all fall under customary law.
Hey, arranged marriage, because all the arranged marriage people are always rich people. Anyways,
so clearly you could see under our Constitution that we recognize customary law, and it's for a particular reason why we recognize it. That before, we became a republic, we have various ethnic groups, living and governing themselves, and you realize that there are differences in between. So how and maybe if someone from the Volta region will deem something as marriage, when you come to the Asante region, might not be the same, and maybe the northern parts might not be the same. So in the wisdom of the framers, they were like, okay, since custom is actually what defines who we are as a people, then let's incorporate that into our laws, so that customary law is part of our laws, which is recognized by the Constitution itself. The only exception to it is that it does not clash with any clear statutory or constitutional provision. Okay, so for instance, people practicing procrecy or female genital mutilation. Some feel it's their custom, it's their call, so they have to do it. But then when there's a statute saying that you cannot do it, then it becomes a crime. Then it overrides the custom. In as much as that particular custom has not been overridden by any constitutional provision or by a statute, then it also becomes a law which should be respected by all persons living within the communities. Yeah.
Okay, so asking on the basis of the trochlesis system and the female genital mutilation, you know, if for anything to become law, it has to pass the test of legality, right? And there should be punitive measures aligned or added to it. And so if the customary laws, does that mean that they've gone through have they passed the test of legality? Are there punitive measures that are assigned to it, such that if you refuse to do it, or if you don't do it, then you can be punished, and they are stipulated? Is that how it works?
Yeah, it has been, but in a different form.
Okay.
So like I said, time passed. So the chieftaincy institutions, which are custodians of our custom. So if there's any issue, like she mentioned, like land issue like this, the chief in a particular community will sit and adjudicate on it. And there are times whereby they may be communal labor. If you are not able to go, you'll be punished, you'll be banished, and all those stuff. So they have, in their own sense, the king and the kingsmakers and the elders have gone through a particular process to come up with established customs and practices for that particular area. Safe to say that, like you rightly said, unless that kind of action, contradicts a particular provision in the Constitution, then you cannot, convict somebody in terms of criminal offense. Then it becomes more of a communal kind of disciplinary action. So for instance, in your organization, they can pass you through a disciplinary procedure and mete out certain maybe punishments or restrictions here and there. That does not amount to a crime unless you can find that in the written law and the sanctions have been attached to it. You cannot be prosecuted for that. So in essence, the customary law has overlived very decades. Exactly. So yes, it has gone through that process. Safe to say that it's not been formalized like what we have, a unitary kind of parliamentary system where all laws are being made through one. Exactly. So I mean, that's
because customs differ.
Exactly.
So okay. So let me put this in a scenario. For example, if you go to a certain village, you don't know the customs there, you don't know the rules and regulations there, and then they say Tuesdays they don't go to the farm or they don't go fishing, and then also you're a fisher woman. You go and fish, and then there's a laid down punishment there. Let's not forget that in this, as you're going there, you still have your human rights that you're supposed to enjoy. You are not supposed to be restricted. You're supposed to have rights to life and all of that. But the punishment there is that if you go and fish on Tuesdays, they will catch you, beat you, and then put you in a cage or somewhere in the king's palace or whatever. In that case, does the Chapter 5 of the 1992 Constitution override these customs, or do we observe these customs and you get these meted out punishments?
Well, I think it kind of depends on the scenario.
Okay.
So we've had an instance whereby some of these things had been adjudicated upon, and the case of Deborah versus the Republic is there, whereby someone goes to the front of the palace, pick some stones and someone says that even at that we are trying to stop you, you are insulting the chief, and based on that such a person was convicted. On appeal, the court said that no, you cannot convict somebody for that because that's not captured in a statute. The only thing you can do, maybe if you die, you cannot bury the person here, you cannot perform certain rites that you go through, that you are at liberty to do, but something that will try to restrict a clear provision in Chapter 5, you cannot do that. Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
So Jesse has a question, and then after his question, we'll just be wrapping up. I think I have about 4 minutes to close the show. He says, in what ways does the legal hierarchy impact the recognition and enforcement of human rights over customary law within a legal system? I think that's basically what we just gone through. I hope, Jesse, you've got your answer. So the 1992 Constitution is the highest of the land. I think, is it Chapter 1? Article 1. Article 1, 2 says that the Constitution shall be the supreme law of Ghana, and any other law found to be inconsistent, the key word here is inconsistent, with any provision of this Constitution shall to the extent of the inconsistency, be void. So I think that answers that for that. I have really enjoyed this discussion. It's good. It's good to have such discourse. But we are leaving. For the sake of the young people who are watching us, what would you say, putting our customary laws and then our human rights together, what would you say to them so that they are aware? I think that Ghana, we are at a disadvantage because if you go to other countries, other foreign countries, almost everybody knows what rights they have. You know, when the police meets you, you know the rights you have, you know what the duties of the police are. And so the exchange becomes, you know, a little flexible. It's not here that what should you do? You can't take my license. You say you don't know the law. You know, so Nanekia, wrapping up, what are you telling the Ghanaian youth especially?
So I think we have a lot of work to do when it comes to understanding our rights. And its infringements. And I think it should also we should incorporate it in our schools, even from a younger age. Even in our social studies or citizenship syllabus and all that. Educating them about their rights, the infringement, the processes to go through. And even we as individuals should make time and start reading on them. Because like you said, the whole police, some people don't even know what can happen to them when the police sees them or what they're entitled to do, or maybe they're entitled to a lawyer or they shouldn't speak or anything. They'll just be there and then anything can happen, and then in the end they are going to blame the president for this. So I think that we should be reading, we should be watching the news, we should also it's a personal initiative. It's not always that the government is going to do something. So you as an individual, you have to work on it. That's all I can tell you.
But the government, you have NCC. Don't wait till election time before you come and tell us about elections and all of that. You have to go and vote. More power.
Yeah, so I mean, we should strive as young people who can read and write and be able to understand. Also take that personal charge up to be able to read, especially anybody can get, now that we are in IT, everybody has a smartphone. You just Google some of these things and just read for yourself to understand. And also, like you rightly said, the NCC has a very huge role to play to understand that people should be able to understand their rights. It's only when you understand your rights that the state will be able to develop on its own. Because now nobody is infringing on anybody's rights. And if you do, they know the right forum to so everybody is kind of cautious and careful on dealing with any other person. So